So the first step that you got to do with prepping the doors is you need to cut out this window section. And they give you instructions on how to do that. So what I did is I actually made up little jigs. The two lines, the first cut, this larger cut, which is the initial opening, you cut that out, and you cut that to 1 3/4 inches. You need to verify it yourself, but 1 3/4 inches from the jog in the door. And once you cut that out, then you got to draw a couple of more lines in. You got to drill out the pilot holes. So all of those things need to happen. So what I did, it's a little, because it's a curve, you know, the surface is curved. What I did, I just took some really light aluminum that I had, some spare, cut a piece that was 1 3/4 inches wide, and then I just put it on here as my template. You'll see I cut over a little bit because I didn't want to cut it too close. I didn't know how to be trimmed yet, but it easily bends around the corners, just makes it easier. I did the same with this line here. This needed to be 1 1/4 inches. So I did the same thing. I created this little template, pop it in here, and boom, you've got 1 1/4 inch. It's pretty easy to do. And then finally, the last one is a 3/4 inch line. So I made a template up for that, same thing. Once you get that done, then you need to mark off the outer line with some tick marks about 1 1/2 inches apart. I think you're going to drill those out, and that's what you'll be able to use to cleco the door together when you're putting it together finally, I think. Haven't gotten that far along, but I figured I'd share that. I thought the aluminum strips just made it a whole lot easier. And I did round the corners, so I cut this out using my oscillating tool here with this blade on it. To round the corners, I just used these two things on my drill. Pretty easy, different diameters to get the shape I want. And I was actually in the process of making it all pretty and everything else. I was going to sand it all down, make it all flat, and then I realized, wait a minute. Once these doors go together, this is going to have to be trimmed to match the inner skin. So this is the outer skin. You'd have to match the inner skin as well. So I thought, well, wait a minute. No point in doing that. This is my first rough cut of it. I'll leave it like that. This allowed me to play with it a little bit, make sure I could see how good I could get these corners. I think they came out pretty good. And like I said, you know, the radius is a little different on each one, so you got to manage that. But it worked out pretty good. So this is the left side. I've got the right side, and then you've got to do the same kinds of things with the inner door skin, but slightly different. I haven't looked at it yet, but I will. And right now I just wanted to get this done so I can start prepping this stuff. The other thing you will need is you'll need to locate. So one of the things in here is you'll see there's a hole here. That's a locating hole. There's also holes rivet holes that have not been filled in the fuselage. You need to match those holes against this and drill these so you can cleco it on. There's a number of ways to do it. I wanted to do it the easiest possible way. So I just ordered another strap duplicator from Aircraft Spruce that fits the 40 holes. And that way I can just slide it up underneath the door, pop it in a hole. It's lined up perfectly, drill it out, and away you go. And there's not too many of them. You could also do it by, you know, taking a piece of angle like this, line it up with the holes, put some markings on the hull, on the fuselage, where the cross is, where the hole is, and then you could just lay this on and line these up, and you could do the same thing. But I don't know, it's just as easy to go get the duplicator, and for the, you know, $11, just make it easier. Anyway, I'll share more as I move along here, but that's the first step. I'll show you these once I get the inner skin done as well, and I'll show you how I did that. But basically reproducing the same process with the outer. Oh, one thing I haven't done yet is I need to drill these out with number 40 bits. or number 40 bit, so I'll do that. And then this guy is ready to be prepped. Cheers. Hey everybody, working on the doors. This has turned out to be a bit of a challenge, but you know, I knew that going into it. So what they normally want you to do is, this is the inner skin, there's the outer skin. Normally you cleco those together. By the way, the alignment holes that were in here just didn't work. There were a couple on the window that worked, but not all of them worked. So I really didn't care about it too much. What I did is I took the outer skin, put it onto the plane. I aligned the front alignment hole on the plane. I aligned the rear alignment hole. If these didn't line up with the inner skin, then what I did is I used that, put both of them on. One side, actually, the alignment holes on the back and the front aligned with the inner skin, so that was okay, even when I had two in the window. But based on that, I measured the height for the outer skin, made sure they were aligned, figured out which alignment hole was correct. It turned out in my case that it was the outer skin alignment hole was correct. So what I did is, on this door, on the pilot side, it was okay. On the passenger side, it wasn't. So you can see here, hopefully you can see that, there's a hole right there. That was the original. I clecoed the outer and inner skins together, and I drilled the alignment hole from the outer skin into the inner skin. That seems to work. And then what they normally do is get you to keep the skins together as you do some fitting in the plane. What I find is it's easier to just use the inner skin, because the first thing you got to do in here is you got to get the gap along here correct. And so just having one skin on there just makes it easier to do that. What I plan on doing is, once I've got a gap here, once this is nice and close together, you'll see there's like still a slight gap. And that's because up here they're still too high, but on the back, for instance, you'll see, if you can see that, it's close, right? It's right on. So what I plan on doing is, once I get it so that this is nice and flush, I'll put the outer skin on, I'll cleco it onto the plane. I use my strap or hole finder to put the holes in the bottom. And then what I'm gonna do is, I've obviously do the holes around the door, but before I even do that, I'm gonna actually drill holes through the skins into the canopy top, and it'll drill in here. And that way I can cleco this on all the way up. Some people will use tape. I've seen people using tapes and weights. My concern is, if I use tape, I don't know if it's gonna stay in nice and tight, and I want this to have a pretty good fit. And I'd seen someone else done it this way, so I was gonna try it. So I'll go drill through here. I'll do the same on the back, drill through both skins. That way, when I'm gluing the two together, I'll actually be able to cleco it onto the fuselage as the mold for the two doors. And once I'm finished, you know, I'm gonna have a bunch of little pinholes, but I got little pinholes in the canopy top anyway, some little spots where I hit it with the sander by mistake. Just fill it in with some epoxy and flux and it should be fine, right? But that's where I'm at. Like I say right now, just making sure they're a good fit. And then I'm probably gonna go and use the other door locking mechanism, where you've got the cam in the middle, so it's nicely locked and secured. So I'll probably do that. So I'll probably fit that in here beforehand, get it all aligned, and then I'll put it together, and then I'll put it in permanently. I've seen some people who put it in and don't cut the hole in the bottom and just have it fit. You could do that. If you get epoxy on it, it's gonna be messed up. And then from everything I've seen, the doors take somewhere between 75 to 100 hours. So what I'm thinking is I'll work on the doors. When I get a little bored with that, I'll do some more on the avionics. When I get bored with that, then maybe I'm gonna put on the main wheels, That way I can kind of get it off my little sticks here. So just working on various bits and pieces as I try and figure out what's the right way to get it all done. But I figured I'd share this, and really now what happens is I put this on. If you see in here, I don't know if you can see that, but anyway, there's some marks in here where it's touching. I mark it, and then what I'm using is I did the rough cut with my oscillating tool, and then I'm using this with a little bit on the end to sand it down, and that seems to work really well. It gets nice spots. You can clean it nicely, and I think that'll be important as I finish it off. Anyway, just how I'm doing it. Don't know if it works. Don't know if it'll work for everybody, but I figured I'd share it. Cheers. I think that's a wrap on part 1 of the doors. So basically trimmed the inside of the cabin, got the doors trimmed. They're nice and, you know, they go pretty close here, nice and flush. So next thing is to move on to part 2, which will be starting to drill these out, cleco it all together so it's one unit. Put the holes down here so that I can cleco that onto the side of the plane, and then also likely drilling through here to get this as a nice fit. Like I said, I think you know, one of the things you can do is people tape it, but I think if I drill it, put a cleco in there, it's going to be a much better mold fit, and then later on I can just fill it in. But we'll see how that goes. And there we have it.